The stars stretched like endless diamonds across the black sea of space. The human exploration vessel Horizon Dawn drifted with steady engines, carrying not just supplies and soldiers but also diplomats. This was no ordinary mission. For the first time, humanity had been invited to speak face-to-face with the Veyari, a proud alien race that had been watching humans from a distance for decades. Lieutenant Marcus Hale stood at the viewing deck, his hands clasped behind his back. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and had the kind of face that looked more comfortable on a battlefield than in a council chamber. Yet here he was, wearing a pressed navy blue uniform, asked to play the role of envoy. He wasn't sure if command had made a wise choice. He was honest to a fault, sometimes blunt, and far from a polished diplomat. Still, Marcus knew one thing about himself. He never backed down from duty. "Lieutenant," a voice called behind him. It was Ambassador Crowley, the official diplomat of the mission, a man with gray hair and a careful tone. "Remember what I said? No jokes, no offhand remarks. The Veyari are proud people, easily offended." Marcus gave a tight nod. "Understood, sir?" Crowley studied him with narrow eyes. "Good, because one wrong word and this alliance might die before it even begins." Marcus kept his mouth shut. He had a habit of speaking before thinking. Crowley's warning weighed heavy on his mind. Moments later, the docking clamps engaged. The humans stepped into the long corridor that led to the Veyari vessel. Silver dusk. The interior was sleek, lined with white metal and faintly glowing threads of gold. The air carried a faint scent of spices and something earthy, like pine. At the far end stood a group of Veyari officers. They were tall, slender beings with fox-like features, umbride ears, amber eyes, and long tails that swayed gently behind them. Their uniforms shimmered silver with crimson accents. To Marcus's human eyes, they were both elegant and intimidating. The leader stepped forward. She was taller than Marcus, her posture proud. Her tail was thicker than the others, fur glossy and perfectly groomed. She wore a command sash across her shoulder, marked with golden pins. "I am Commander Sirali of the Veyari," she said, her voice smooth yet carrying authority. Her amber eyes scanned the humans, settling on Marcus as though she already knew him. "Welcome aboard," Crowley bowed slightly as instructed in cultural briefings. Marcus copied the motion, though his was stiff and less graceful. "Thank you for receiving us," Crowley said smoothly. Sirali inclined her head. "It is time our species speak as allies, not strangers." The group moved to the meeting chamber. It was an oval room with low tables, cushions instead of chairs, and faint lights that shifted like candle flames. Human boots clacked awkwardly against the polished floor while the Veyari sat cross-legged with natural grace. Marcus followed Crowley's lead, sitting stiffly on a cushion that felt far too soft. Talk began formal words about trade, defense, and exploration. Marcus stayed silent, trying to look respectful. But the longer the meeting went on, the more he found his attention drifting. His eyes wandered to Sirali. Her posture was so rigid, it was almost like a statue. But her tail betrayed small movements, slow waves, tiny flicks, curling and uncurling. The fur shimmered under the lights, thick and perfectly kept. Marcus, without thinking, whispered to himself, "Looks fluffy." The words slipped out before he could stop them, unfortunately. The room was quiet enough that several Veyari officers turned their heads sharply. Even Crowley looked at Marcus in horror. Sirali's amber eyes locked on him. The silence grew heavy. Marcus froze. He wanted to sink into the floor. I didn't mean," he began, but Sirali rose smoothly to her feet. She walked over, tail swaying behind her, and stopped directly in front of him. Marcus felt every eye in the room staring. "You," Sirali said softly, "find my tail." "Pleasing." Marcus swallowed. His mouth was dry. He thought about denying it, but lying never came naturally to him. "Yes," he said at last. "It looks very fluffy." The Veyari officers gasped in unison. A whisper ran through them, sharp and fast. Sirali's expression shifted. Her lips curved, not quite a smile, but something close. She leaned slightly closer. "Then it is decided." Marcus blinked. Decided. What's decided? She straightened, facing the room. By ancient bond he has spoken the words. He recognizes the heart of me. He will not leave my side. The chamber erupted. The Vieri murmured excitedly, some even bowing slightly toward Marcus. Crowley jumped up. Commander, surely this is a misunderstanding, but Sorelli raised a hand. No misunderstanding. Among the Viari, to praise the tale is to bind spirit to spirit. He has chosen. I accept. Marcus stared at her in shock. He had no idea what he had just done. Back on the Horizon Dawn, Crowley was furious. He paced the briefing room while Marcus sat in stunned silence. Do you have any idea what you've done? Crowley snapped. The Viari see tales as sacred. To comment on one is practically a marriage vow. Marcus groaned, rubbing his temples. I didn't know. I wasn't trying to insult anyone. It just slipped out. Crowley jabbed a finger at him. Slipped out? You may have just bound yourself to their commander. Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but the ship's intercom chimed. Lieutenant Hale, came Sorelli's voice. Report to Silver Dusk. Your place is here. Crowley looked like he might faint. She's already calling you over, Marcus sighed. Guess I don't have a choice. Aboard the Silver Dusk, Sorelli personally greeted Marcus. This time, instead of leading him to the council chamber, she guided him through the ship's halls. Everywhere they walked, Viari crew members nodded with respect, some even giving Marcus's curious looks, as if he were already part of them. Sorelli glanced at him. You are quieter than I expected. Marcus shrugged awkwardly. I'm still trying to figure out what exactly I did back there. You honored me, Sorelli said simply. Few outside my people even understand the significance of a tale. To recognize it without fear, it means you see me truly. Marcus scratched the back of his neck. Honestly, Commander, I just thought it looked nice. Nothing more. She tilted her head, studying him with those golden eyes. Perhaps that is what makes it pure. He didn't know how to respond. She led him into a chamber lined with banners. From this day, you are bondsworn. You will learn our ways. You will stand with me. Marcus's heart sank. Bondsworn. That sounded far too permanent. Commander, he said carefully, with respect. I'm not sure I can. She cut him off with a raised hand. You can. You already have. Words are not taken lightly among my people. Marcus realized he was trapped. Yet as he looked at her proud, unshaken, her tail swaying slowly, he couldn't help but feel a strange pull. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was something deeper. Whatever it was. He knew one thing. His life had just changed forever, and he wasn't sure if he wanted it back. The next morning, Marcus Hale woke to the soft hum of the Viari ship's engines. He was lying on a guest bed that was far too soft for his liking. The chamber was simple, with smooth walls, golden lights, and faint symbols etched into the ceiling. For a moment, he forgot where he was. Then the memory of the previous day came crashing back. He groaned and buried his face in the pillow. I told her her tail looked fluffy, he muttered, and now I'm stuck here. The door slid open without a sound. Commander Sorelli stepped inside. Her posture was as straight as ever, her tail swaying behind her like a banner. She carried a tray with 2 cups of steaming liquid. You are awake, she said. Marcus sat up quickly, almost too quickly. Commander Sorelli, she corrected. She handed him one of the cups. Bondsworn do not use titles with each other. Marcus hesitated but took the drink. The cup was warm, and the liquid smelled like cinnamon mixed with pine. He took a cautious sip. It was strong, almost burning, but it left a refreshing taste. What is this? He asked. Rootfire, she said. It gives strength. You will need it. Marcus frowned. Why do I need strength? I'm not fighting anyone. Her golden eyes met his. You are entering our world. That requires more strength than battle. Marcus rubbed the back of his neck. Look, Commander Sorelli, I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. I didn't mean to bond with you. Where I come from, saying something looks fluffy doesn't mean anything serious. Her ears flicked slightly, a gesture he was beginning to recognize as irritation. Among the Viari words carry weight, You honored me with truth. You cannot take it back, he sighed. I wasn't trying to dishonor you. I just don't want to cause problems between our people. Sorelli studied him in silence for a long moment. Then, to his surprise, she gave a small smile. You already cause problems, Marcus Hale, but not the kind you think. Later that day, Marcus was escorted through the ship by 2 VRE officers. Everywhere he went, crew members stopped to glance at him. Some nodded respectfully, others whispered to each other, their tails flicking with curiosity. He felt like an animal on display. The officers brought him to a hall filled with banners, weapons, and shields. This, Sorelli explained, is the Hall of Bonds. Every Vayari commander who had ever formed a sacred bond had their story inscribed here. Sorelli placed her hand against a wall, and glowing symbols appeared. Your name will join these, she said. Marcus stared at the glowing letters. You're carving me into history because I said your tail looked fluffy? Her tail swayed proudly. Yes, he pressed his palm to his face. Unbelievable. Meanwhile, on the human ship Horizon Dawn, Ambassador Crowley was pacing in frustration. He slammed his hand against the table. This is absurd. The Vayari think one of our lieutenants has bound himself to their commander. Another officer, Captain Rivera, folded her arms. Absurd or not, we can't risk insulting them. If Hale refuses, we could lose everything. The Vayari could see it as betrayal. Crowley scowled. So what? We let him stay over there like some... Pet. Rivera shook her head. Not a pet, a symbol. Whether we like it or not, he might have secured us an alliance stronger than any treaty, Crowley groaned. All because of a stupid comment. Back on the Silver Dusk, Marcus was led into the training hall. Sorelli stood at the center, dressed in lighter armor. Her tail swayed behind her like a metronome. You must learn our customs, she said firmly. Words alone are not enough. Marcus crossed his arms. Customs. What kind? Fighting, she replied simply. She tossed him a practice staff made of polished wood. He caught it clumsily. Wait, you want me to fight you? Sorella's eyes narrowed with challenge. Bondsworn fight together. But first, they fight each other, so they know each other's strength. Marcus muttered under his breath, This day keeps getting better. The duel began. Sorelli moved like lightning, her staff whirling in precise arcs. Marcus barely managed to block the first strike, and the second nearly knocked the weapon from his hands. He stumbled back. You're trying to break me in half? Her lips curved slightly. I am testing you. Marcus gritted his teeth. He wasn't about to give up. Drawing on years of basic combat training, he adjusted his grip and waited for her next move. When she swung again, he sidestepped and pushed forward, forcing her to retreat a step. Her eyes widened with surprise. Good. The duel continued for several minutes, wooden staffs clashing loudly. Marcus's arms ached, sweat dripped down his forehead, but he refused to quit. Finally, Sorelli struck his staff hard enough to send it flying from his hands. He fell backward onto the floor, groaning. She stood over him, tail swaying. You lasted longer than I expected. Marcus glared up at her. Glad to know I impressed you. She extended her hand. He hesitated, then took it. Her grip was firm as she pulled him back to his feet. You have strength, she said, and stubbornness. Both are worthy. Marcus caught his breath. Yeah, well, stubbornness is kind of a human specialty. For the first time, Sorelli laughed. It was a quiet sound, but genuine. Days passed. Marcus continued to live on the Silver Dusk, learning Vayari customs, training with their warriors, and eating strange but surprisingly good food. He grew familiar with the rhythm of the ship, the way crew members bowed their heads when he passed, the respectful whispers of bonds worn that followed him. At first it felt overwhelming, but slowly he began to feel less like an outsider. Still, doubts remained. Every night, as he lay on the soft bed, Marcus thought about Earth, about his own people, and about whether he truly belonged here. He wondered if this bond was a prison or an opportunity. Sorelli, for her part, seemed completely certain. She spoke to him often, asking questions about humans, about their history, their art, their wars. She listened with sharp curiosity, sometimes amused, sometimes thoughtful. And Marcus found himself asking her about the Viari, learning their legends, their honor codes, their ways of seeing the universe. The bond between them, whether he wanted it or not, was growing. One evening, as they stood on the observation deck, Sorelli spoke quietly. "Do you regret your words?" Marcus looked at her, then out at the stars. "Honestly, at first, yes. I felt trapped. But now, I'm not sure." Her golden eyes studied him. "That is enough for now." He stood in silence. Watching the stars together, neither noticed the shadow moving in the far distance, a hostile ship creeping toward their convoy, carrying enemies who wished to shatter the fragile bond between humans and Viari. Before it could grow stronger, the peace would not last. The Viari ship Silver Dusk glided through open space with silent grace. Its silver hull shimmered in the starlight as it traveled beside the human vessel Horizon Dawn. The two ships moved together, a sign of cooperation, a fragile symbol that perhaps humans and Viari could truly become allies. "Lieutenant." Marcus Hale stood with Commander Sorelli on the observation deck. For days now, he had been caught in the whirlwind of Viari customs and training. He still felt like an outsider, but less than before. He was learning their ways, earning their respect, and even finding himself drawn to Sorelli's calm strength. But even as he stood there, something unsettled him. The silence of space felt heavier than usual, as if danger was hiding just beyond sight. "Something's off," Marcus muttered. Sorelli tilted her head. "What do you feel?" He frowned. "I can't explain it. Just a gut instinct." Her golden eyes narrowed slightly. "Humans trust their instincts often. Usually keeps us alive," Marcus replied. Before Sorelli could answer, alarms blared through the ship. Red lights flashed along the corridor, and a Viari officer's voice echoed through the intercom. "Enemy ships approaching. Unknown faction closing fast." Sorelli's ears flicked sharply. Her tail went stiff. "Battle stations." She ordered. Marcus followed her into the command center. Screens lit up with images of sleek, dark ships darting toward them like predators. Their hulls were jagged, their engines burning an unnatural blue. The officer at the console spoke quickly. "Identities confirmed. The Arkashi Raiders." Marcus felt his chest tighten. He had heard of the Arco-nomadic marauders known for striking colonies and convoys. They thrived on chaos, feared no treaties, and sought to keep new alliances weak. The Silver Dusk shook as the first barrage of plasma fire struck its shields. The crew worked quickly, returning fire with precise blasts from their cannons. But more Arkashi ships appeared on the scanners, too many, on the human vessel. Captain Rivera's voice came over the coms. "Commander Sorelli, Lieutenant Halweir, under heavy attack. Shields at 60% already." Marcus clenched his fists. "They're targeting us because they don't want this alliance to succeed." Sorelli's eyes hardened. "Then we show them why it must succeed." The battle raged across the void. Energy blasts lit up the darkness like thunderbolts. The Viari ship fought with elegance, its movements sharp and calculated. The human vessel fought with raw firepower, pouring heavy rounds into the enemy lines. But the Arkashi were relentless. Their ships swarmed like wolves, striking from every angle. Marcus leaned over the tactical display. "They're not trying to destroy us outright. Look, they're circling, trying to cut us off from each other." Sorelli studied the display. "Divide and conquer. If they separate us, we fall." Marcus thought quickly. He remembered his training, the countless drills where humans had been outnumbered. Humanity had always survived, not because of strength, but because of cunning. "I have an idea," he said. Sorelli looked at him. "Speak." Marcus pointed to the display. "They expect us to fight by the book, your people with perfect formations, my people with heavy firepower. But what if we mix it up? We combine human unpredictability with Viari precision." Her tail twitched thoughtfully. "Explain." Marcus leaned closer. "We fake weakness. Humans will pull back, make it look like we're retreating, The Arkashi will chase hard. That's when you strike from below, cutting through their formation. Sorali studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. Risky, but bold. Marcus grinned. Humans are good at risky. She turned to her crew. Follow his plan. Prepare for deception maneuver. The Horizon Dawn suddenly shifted course, pulling back as though its engines were damaged. Its cannons fired sporadically, feigning desperation. The Arkashi saw the chance and surged forward like sharks scenting blood. They're taking the bait, Marcus muttered. At that exact moment, the silver dusk dove sharply beneath the battlefield, its silver hull blending with the stars. Then, with a sudden burst of power, it shot upward. Slicing through the Arkashi flank, the surprise maneuver caught the raiders off guard. Several enemy ships were destroyed in the first volley. Cheers erupted across the command deck. But Marcus wasn't celebrating yet. He saw the larger enemy cruiser moving into position. It was heavily armored, its weapons glowing ominously. That one's the leader, Marcus said. If we take it down, the others might scatter. Sorali nodded. Then we strike together. The two allied ships coordinated their attack. The Horizon Dawn unleashed heavy fire from a distance, while the Silver Dusk darted in close. Targeting weak points with surgical precision, the enemy cruiser returned fire, shaking both vessels violently. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Marcus grabbed the edge of the console to keep from falling. Shields at 20%. A Vyari officer shouted. Marcus's mind raced. They couldn't take much more. He searched the display, then spotted something there. That vent near the rear engine sits exposed when they fire their main cannon. You are certain? Not certain, Marcus admitted, but it's our best shot. She hesitated for only a second, then gave the order. All power to forward cannons. Target the vent, the Silver Dusk charged, weaving through a storm of enemy fire. The cruiser's massive cannon began to glow, preparing for a devastating blast. Now, Marcus shouted. The Vyari cannons unleashed a concentrated beam into the vent. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the cruiser shuddered violently. Flames burst from its rear as its engines overloaded. The massive ship tore itself apart in a blinding explosion. The surrounding Arkashi vessels faltered, their formation breaking. Without their leader, they scattered, retreating into the darkness. The battlefield fell silent. On the command deck, the crew erupted into cheers. Vyari officers bowed their heads toward Sorali. Several even looked at Marcus with newfound respect. You did it? One of them whispered. Marcus shook his head. We did it together. Sorali's golden eyes rested on him. Your instinct saved us. You saw what we did not. Marcus gave a tired smile. Sometimes humans get lucky. Not luck. Insight. Hours later, the two ships regrouped. The damage was heavy, but they were still flying. The Alliance had survived its first trial by fire. On the Horizon Dawn, Captain Rivera spoke with Sorali over the comms. Your commander and my lieutenant make quite the team. Sorali's tail curled slightly, almost possessively as she glanced at Marcus standing beside her. He is bonds worn. His victories are my victories. Rivera raised an eyebrow but said nothing. When the transmission ended, Marcus turned to Sorali. You really don't plan on letting me go, do you? Her lips curved into the faintest smile. You said my tail was fluffy. That cannot be undone. Marcus groaned softly, but deep inside he felt something he couldn't deny. He had not only survived, but proved humanity's worth in the eyes of the VAYs, as the stars stretched out before them once more. Marcus realized the bond he had stumbled into was no longer just a mistake. It was becoming something real. But he also knew this was only the beginning, because somewhere out there, enemies were watching, waiting for the right moment to strike again, and this time, the entire galaxy might be at stake. The stars beyond the viewport looked calm again, as if the battle with the Arkashi had never happened. But inside the Vyari ship's Silver Dusk, the air was heavy with exhaustion. Crew members worked to repair damaged systems, heal the wounded, and count the cost of their narrow victory. Lieutenant Marcus Hale stood at the center of it all. leaning against a console while the hum of repair drones filled the background. His body ached from sleepless hours, and his uniform was scuffed, but he was alive. More than that, he had helped save both ships. Commander Sorali entered the chamber, her posture as steady as always. Only a faint cut along her cheek betrayed that she had been in the heart of danger. Her tail moved slowly behind her, not tense, but calm. "You should rest," Marcus said. "You've been working non-stop since the battle ended." Her amber eyes studied him. "So have you. Humans are stubborn," he replied with a faint smile. "We don't know when to quit." She stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "That is why you survived. That is why we both survived." Marcus glanced around. The crew still whispered when they looked at him. Respect, curiosity, something close to reverence. He still wasn't used to it. "Sorali," he began carefully, "I know your people think I've bound myself to you. But after this battle, I need to be honest. I never planned this. I didn't know what those words meant." "You know that." Her ears flicked slightly, a rare sign of unease. "Yes, I know. Then why hold me to it?" She was silent for a long moment. Finally, she said, "Because it is not only about you. It is about us. What you said may have been without intent, but your actions since then, they have proven worthy of the bond." Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but her gaze stopped him. She wasn't speaking out of stubborn tradition now. She was speaking from something deeper. Later that day, both ships docked at a neutral station for emergency repairs. The station was chosen carefully, a place where both humans and Vyari could meet without fear of hostility. It was here that the two species would hold a joint council. Deciding whether to formalize an alliance, the council chamber was grand. With high ceilings and banners of both species displayed side by side, human officers and Vyari commanders filled the room, their voices low, their expressions wary. Everyone knew what was at stake. Ambassador Crowley looked pale as he whispered to Marcus before the meeting began. "For the record, I still think this entire bond business is ridiculous. But somehow, you've turned it into a diplomatic miracle. If this works, you'll be remembered in every history book." Marcus grimaced. "That's not comforting," and the council began. Captain Rivera spoke on behalf of the humans, Commander Sorali for the Vyari. They presented their case, how the battle had proven the strength of unity, how humans and Vyari had fought side by side and prevailed against overwhelming odds, but not everyone was convinced. Some human officers worried about binding themselves too closely to an alien culture. Some Vyari elders muttered that humans were too reckless, too unrefined, unworthy of deep trust. The debate grew heated. Voices rose, tails flicked, fists clenched. Finally, Sorali stood. She raised her hand, commanding silence. Her golden eyes swept across the chamber. "You doubt humans," she said firmly. "You fear their ways. You think them reckless, clumsy, too quick with words. But I tell you this, their strength lies not in perfection, but in persistence. They see paths we do not. They adapt when others break. They endure when others fall. Without Marcus Hale, we would all be drifting wrecks in the void." Murmurs spread across the chamber. Marcus felt his cheeks burn, but he stood tall. Sorelli continued, her voice steady. "He spoke words that bound us. I will not let him go, because he has proven that his people are worth holding to. If you doubt humanity, then you doubt me." The chamber went silent. Then Captain Rivera spoke. "I was there. I saw it myself. Humanity may be reckless, but we are loyal. And if Commander Sorali says she trusts us, then so do I." One by one, voices shifted. The arguments turned softer, the doubts weaker. Slowly, the idea of alliance grew stronger, fed by the living proof standing side by side in the center of the chamber, Marcus Hale and Commander Sorali, at last. The council voted. The banners of human blue and Vyari silver were raised together. A new pact was signed, an alliance forged not by polished words or planned treaties, but by battle, trust, and an offhand remark that had bound two lives together. After the council ended, Marcus and Sorelli walked side by side through the quiet corridors of the station. "You realize," Marcus said, that my people are never going to let me live this down. They'll say humanity got an alliance because I couldn't keep my mouth shut. Her tail brushed lightly against his arm. Let them say it. History is not always written with careful plans. Sometimes it is written by accident. But the result is what matters. Marcus chuckled softly. Accident or not, I guess I'm glad it happened. They stopped at a viewport, looking out at the stars. The banners of both species hung outside the station, glowing against the void. Do you still wish to take back your words? Sorelli asked quietly. Marcus hesitated. He thought about the journey, his awkward arrival, the endless training, the battle, the council. He thought about Sorelli's strength, her calm, the strange comfort he had come to feel by her side. Finally, he shook his head. No, I don't take it back. For the first time, Sorelli smiled fully. Her tail curled around his waist protectively, a gesture that needed no translation. Then it is settled, she said softly. Weeks later, the alliance between humans and Vayari was already making ripples across the galaxy. Colonies once vulnerable now had protection. Trade routes opened between species. Patrol fleets flew together. Mixing human ingenuity with Vayari precision, Marcus Hale became a symbol not because he sought glory, but because he had spoken words that carried unexpected weight, and because he had lived up to them. On the silver dusk, life continued. Marcus still trained, still stumbled over Vayari customs, still argued with Sorelli about tactics, but he also laughed more, learned more, and found himself belonging in ways he had never expected. One evening, as the ship drifted quietly through the stars, he asked her, Do you ever regret it, that I said those words? Sorelli shook her head. Never. You saw me as no one else did. Not as commander, not as alien, but simply as Sorelli. That is why I will never let you go. Marcus smiled, looking out at the stars. Guess I'm stuck with you then. Not stuck, she corrected. Chosen. And for once, Marcus couldn't argue, because in that moment, he realized she was right. What had begun as an accident, a careless comment, had become something far greater, a bond not only between two people, but between two species, and in the vast, uncertain galaxy. That bond was humanity's greatest victory.